aim to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good afternoon, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Bangkok, Thailand with Gila. Hello, Gila. Welcome to the program.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon. And to all our viewers, good afternoon. I'm Gila Pablo, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, President Joe Biden announced that the U.S. had killed Al-Qaeda chief Ayman al-Zawahiri, one of the world's most wanted terrorists and a mastermind of the September 11, 2001 attacks in a drone strike in Kabul. The White House warned China against overreacting to a trip by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, saying she would have every right to visit the self-ruled island, despite Beijing viewing it as a highly provocative challenge. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology said that 4 volcanic tremors that lasted 2 to 7 minutes were again detected in the Taal volcano for the past 24 hours. And President Bongbong Marcos Jr. made it clear that the Philippines has no intention of rejoining the International Criminal Court. First in our news, President Joe Biden announced that the U.S. had killed Al-Qaeda chief Ayman al-Zawahiri, one of the world's most wanted terrorists and a mastermind of the September 11, 2001 attacks in a drone strike in Kabul. In a somber televised address, President Biden said he gave the final go-ahead for the high-precision strike that successfully targeted Zawahiri in the Afghan capital over the weekend.
He made videos, including in recent weeks, calling for his followers to attack the United States and our allies. Now, justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more. This mission was carefully planned, rigorously minimized the risk of harm to other civilians. And 1 week ago, after being advised that the conditions were optimal, I gave the final approval to go get him. And the mission was a success. None of his family members were hurt, and there were no civilian casualties. After relentlessly seeking Zawahiri for years under Presidents Bush, Obama, and Trump, our intelligence community located Zawahiri earlier this year. He had moved to downtown Kabul to reunite with members of his immediate family. After carefully considering the clear and convincing evidence of his location, I authorized a precision strike that would remove him from the battlefield once and for all. You know, Zawahiri was bin Laden's leader. He was with him the whole time. He was his #2 man, his deputy at the time the terrorists attacked 9/11. He was deeply involved in the planning of 9/11. One of the most responsible for the attacks that murdered 2,977 people on American soil. For decades, he was the mastermind behind attacks against Americans, including the bombing of the USS Cole in 2000, which killed 17 American sailors and wounded dozens more.
Al-Qaeda has helped rebels before in Indonesia and the Philippines. According to the Banner News, Afghanistan has always played a part in the development of terrorist networks in Southeast Asia. Not many Southeast Asians traveled to fight the Soviets in the 1980s, but those that did returned to Southeast Asia and took over leadership of almost every militant Islamist group, including Jemaah Islamiyah, Kampulan Mujahideen in Malaysia, and Laskar Jihad. These returnees were placed on pedestals and established madrasas that they used as centers for recruitment and indoctrination for the next generation of militant jihadists. Meanwhile, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front broke away from the secular Moro National Liberation Front in 1984 and moved their headquarters to Lahore, Pakistan, where they deepened ties to transnational jihadists by 1996. Al-Qaeda was dispatching operatives to replicate at the local level their Afghan training camps. Southeast Asian militants were increasingly being trained at Al-Qaeda camps in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, the White House today warned China against overreacting to a trip by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, saying she would have every right to visit the self-ruled island despite Beijing viewing it as a highly provocative challenge. Let's listen in.
The Speaker has the right to visit Taiwan, and the Speaker of the House has visited Taiwan before without incident, as have many members of Congress, including this year. The world has seen the United States government be very clear that nothing has changed. Nothing has changed about our one China policy, which is, of course, guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint U.S. PRC communiques, and the 6 assurances. We have said, we have repeatedly said, that we oppose any unilateral changes to the status quo from either side. We have said that we do not support Taiwan independence, and we have said that we expect cross-strait differences to be resolved by peaceful means. Put simply, there is no reason for Beijing to turn a potential visit consistent with long-standing U.S. policy into some sort of crisis or conflict, or use it as a pretext to increase aggressive military activity in or around the Taiwan Strait. And yet, over the weekend, even before Speaker Pelosi arrived in the region, China conducted a live-fire exercise. China appears to be positioning itself to potentially take further steps in the coming days and perhaps over longer time horizons. These potential steps from China could include military provocations, such as firing missiles in the Taiwan Strait or around Taiwan, operations that break historical norms, such as large-scale air entry into Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, ADIZ, I think you all know that acronym, air or naval activities that cross the median line, and military exercises that could be highly publicized. This could also include actions in the diplomatic and economic space, such as further spurious legal claims by Beijing's public assertions last month, like Beijing's public assertions last month that the Taiwan Strait is not an international waterway. Some of these actions would continue concerning trend lines that we've seen in recent years, but some could be of a different scope and scale. The last time Beijing fired missiles into the Taiwan Strait was 1995 and 1996, after Beijing reacted provocatively to Taiwan's president's visit to deliver an address at his alma mater. I want to contrast this now between the United States and China. We, and countries around the world, believe escalation serves no one. Beijing's actions could have unintended consequences that only serve to increase tensions. Meanwhile, our actions are not threatening, and they break no new ground. Nothing about this potential visit, which, oh, by the way, has precedent, would change the status quo. And the world should reject any PRC effort to use it to do so. We will not take the bait or engage in saber rattling. At the same time, we will not be intimidated.
This is very much precedent in the sense that previous speakers visited Taiwan. Many members of Congress go to Taiwan, including this year. And so if the speaker does decide to visit and China tries to create some kind of crisis or otherwise escalate tensions, that would be entirely on Beijing.
As we can see, such a visit is apparently very much dangerous, very much provocative. If the U.S. insists on making the visit, China will take firm and strong measures to safeguard our national sovereignty and territorial integrity. What I have prepared for Security Council PR colleagues is a Chinese fan, and I have it here. And I hope that with this fun, we can really cool down the global temperature, also cool down the tensions, and also to cool down the emotional way council members are working with each other.
Ms. Pelosi kicked her trip off Monday with a stop in Singapore, where Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong urged her at a meeting to strive for stable ties with Beijing. Her itinerary also includes Malaysia, South Korea, and Japan. But the prospect of a Taiwan visit has dominated attention. Media reports have said that Pelosi, currently on an official Asia tour, will stop off in Taiwan and meet President Tsai Ing-wen on Wednesday, if so, the highest-level U.S. visit to Taipei in decades. American officials often make discreet visits to Taiwan to show support, but a Pelosi trip would be higher profile than any in recent history. Beijing, which views Taiwan as its territory, has reacted furiously to the idea, warning President Joe Biden that his administration was playing with fire and announcing a series of live-fire military drills in the Taiwan Straits.
U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi arrived in Kuala Lumpur on Tuesday. Malaysian state media reported her second stop in an Asian tour that has sparked rage in Beijing over a possible stop in Taiwan. She flew in from Singapore via a special aircraft and landed at the Subang Royal Malaysian Air Force Base at 10:33 a.m. Pelosi was welcomed by U.S. Ambassador to Malaysia, Brian McPeters, and Dewan Rakwat, Deputy Speaker Datuk Mod Rashid Hasnon. She is slated to visit Parliament today. It is Pelosi's maiden visit to Malaysia with Gregory Meeks, chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, also in the delegation list. Pelosi is number 3 in the line of U.S. presidential succession and the only woman who has served as the Speaker of U.S. House. After Singapore and Malaysia, her itinerary includes stops in South Korea, and Japan, but the prospect of a Taiwan visit was dominated attention. While President Joe Biden's administration is understood to be opposed to a Taiwan stop by Pelosi, White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said she was entitled to go where she pleased. Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong urged U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to strive for stable ties with Beijing as he met the high-profile official during her visit to the city on Monday. The Singaporean Premier and Pelosi also discussed the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, climate change, and tensions surrounding Thailand with mainland China. I quote, PM Lee highlighted the importance of stable U.S.-China relations for regional peace and security, a statement from Singapore's foreign ministry. Singapore said Lee welcomed a U.S. commitment to strong engagement with the region, and the two sides discussed ways to deepen economic engagement through initiatives such as the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework.
Meanwhile, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. made it clear that the Philippines has no intention of rejoining the International Criminal Court. This after the president recently convened with his legal team, composed of his Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Juan Ponce Enrile, Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez, Solicitor General Menardo Guevara, Justice Secretary Crispin Boying Remulla, and Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo, plus Attorney Harry Roque. Again, let's listen in.
No, the Philippines has no intention of rejoining the ICC. The meeting that we had with the Solgen, the Secretary of the Department of Justice, kasama na rin dyan si Senator Enrile, who has become my legal advisor. Amongst other, yes, also si Attorney Harry Roque, because he is involved and recognized by the ICC. Ang meeting namin ay dahil sinasabi ngayon na itutuloy ang investigasyon. Sinasabi naman namin may investigasyon naman dito. At patuloy rin naman ang investigasyon. Bakit magkakaroon ng ganon? So anyway, para alam natin ang gagawin natin, if we will respond, if we will not respond, kung sakali man sasagot tayo, ano magiging sagot natin, or possible din, hindi natin papansinin dahil hindi naman tayo sumasailalim sa kanila. So, pero the ICC is a very different kind of a court. Kaya pinag-aralan muna, sinabi ko sa inyo, pag-aralan nyo na mabuti yung procedure para tama yung gagawin natin. Kasi hindi natin, siyempre, kailangan baka ma-misinterpret yung ating mga ginagawa. Kaya liwanagin natin kung ano ba talaga ang dapat gawin, sinong susulat, kanino, anong ilalagay sa sulat, etc. etc.
During the Pinas Lakas event in Pasig City, Marcos announced he will not reverse the decision of former President Duterte to leave the Hague-based International Tribunal. According to a Business Mirror report, the country officially withdrew its ICC membership on the 17th of March this year after the tribunal started investigating the mounting fatalities in the government's war against illegal drugs. The ICC, however, maintained it can continue to look into the matter since the probe started before the membership withdrawal took effect. President Duterte strongly opposed the ICC intervention, which he maintains is unnecessary since local authorities and courts are already conducting their investigation on the drug-related deaths. The planned ICC probe was temporarily suspended in November upon the request of the Philippine government, but last June, ICC prosecutor Karim Khan announced their plan to push through with the investigation. The ICC gave the government until September 8 this year to comment on the matter. Staying in the country, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLC, said that 4 volcanic tremors that lasted 2 to 7 minutes were detected in the Taal volcano for the past 24 hours. The tremors are volcanic earthquakes signifying fluid or gas movement, according to PHIVOLC's director Renato Solidum, telling the Philippine News Agency. He added that these tremors have no relation to the magnitude 7 earthquake that jolted northern Luzon last week. Alert level 1, meaning low level unrest, stays, according to Solidum. Under alert level 1, sudden steam-driven or phreatic explosions, volcanic earthquakes, minor ashfall, and expulsions of volcanic gas could threaten areas within Taal's permanent danger zone. Entry into the permanent danger zone, especially the vicinities of the main crater and the Daang Castilla fissure, remains prohibited. Occupancy and boating on the Taal Lake are likewise prohibited. Pilots are also urged to avoid flying close to the volcano as airborne ash and ballistic fragments from explosions and wind-remobilized ash may pose hazards to the aircraft. For the past 24 hours, a voluminous plume emission reaching 1,200 meters high was also observed.
Vice President and Education Secretary Sara Duterte said the Education Ministry needs 18 billion pesos as she described the situation of the Department of Education as in a quicksand. This following the destruction brought about by Typhoon Odette last year, from which the school system has yet to recover, and the magnitude 7 earthquake that hit northern Luzon recently. Let's watch this.
Meanwhile, only last week, the province of Abra and other areas of northern Luzon were jolted by a powerful earthquake that affected more than 9,000 schools. The assessment conducted by the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Service showed that the government would need 1.4 billion for the repair of 451 classrooms destroyed by the earthquake and the other 706 classrooms that sustained damage. We all know these problems and the other problems and challenges that the Department of Education and its partners are facing year in and year out. As mentioned by ASEC Bringas, we were in a meeting last week and I was telling our USECs and ASECs that we are in a quicksand. And we need more than 18 billion, excluding the 1.4 billion of damages from the Abra earthquake, to get ourselves out of the quicksand of this year and last year. It does not include the things or the repairs that we have to do from 2016. But I am confident and I am optimistic that the Department of Education will overcome.
Brigada Escuela is a nationwide public school activity where students, parents, teachers, and civic groups work together and prepare the schools for the opening of classes each year. A magnitude 5.1 earthquake jolted Eastern Samar early Tuesday, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology reported. The tectonic quake struck 13 kilometers northeast of the municipality of General MacArthur at 1:10 a.m. and had a depth of 57 kilometers. Intensity 5 was felt in General MacArthur, Hernani, and Pinapundan in Eastern Samar, Pastrana, Palo, and Tacloban City in Leyte. Aftershocks are likely, but damage is not expected from the tremor. Damage starts at intensity 6 based on Fibos scale.
Staying in the country, President Marcos Jr. on Monday urged the public to heed the government's call and get their vaccinations and booster shots against COVID. He spoke at the side of the Pinalakas vaccination event in Pasig City, where he went to personally observe the city's ongoing vaccination drive. Let's listen in.
Wala naman tayong ibang panlaban dito kung hindi ang vaccine. Wag na po nating antayin na dumami pa ang mga kaso at maging mahirap na naman ang ating pagpunta sa trabaho, ang ating paglabas ng bahay. Ngunit naipangako ko sa inyo at uulitin ko, sa aking palagay, kaya naman nating makontrol ito, kaya hindi na tayo magla-lockdown. Ingat lang po, follow the protocols, hugas ng kamay, suot lang muna po ng mask hanggang masabi natin ang Pilipinas ay COVID-free. We have to remember that the situation now in August 2022 is very, very different from it was maybe in June of last year. We have now the vaccines, and many people have been vaccinated already. Of course, we still have the subject of the booster rollout actually came about because we were talking about the face-to-face classes this coming semester. So sabi namin, paghandaan na natin lahat. And the DOH's, ang rekomendasyon ng DOH ay sabi nila, wag lang yung mga bata. Lahat na dapat mapabooster na natin para talagang ligtas na sila doon sa COVID or Omicron and its variants.
President Marcos said that he wants not just school children to be given additional doses as an added layer of protection when face-to-face classes resume, but for a massive vaccination drive to be launched in the Visayas and Mindanao, where the COVID-19 positivity rate is increasing. President Marcos also congratulated the Pasig City government for its successful rollout of vaccination or booster vaccinations. To date, around 71.6 million Filipinos have already been vaccinated with the primary series or the first 2 doses of COVID vaccines. However, only 15 million got their booster jabs. Monkeypox is not as alarming as COVID-19, according to President Bongbong Marcos Jr. The president made this remark after the Department of Health, or DOH, announced that the Philippines' first case of monkeypox on Friday, nearly a week after the World Health Organization declared the infectious disease a global health emergency. Again, let's listen in.
Yes, it's unfortunate that we have recorded our monkeypox case, one. Let me stress on that. It is one monkeypox case here in the Philippines. And as of now, the patient, yung pasyente ng monkeypox ay pagaling na at malapit, umuwi na yata. Yeah, nakauwi na, monkeypox. But even then, I want to be very clear to everyone, this is not COVID. Hindi kagaya ng COVID ito. Hindi nakakatakot kagaya ng COVID, yung monkeypox. Parang smallpox. Para kami smallpox, marami namang gamot. Kaya pwede naman natin gamutin. Pero again, ganun din eh. Kagaya ng lahat ng sakit, kailangan malinis ang mga kamay natin. Medyo mag-ingat lang tayo sa sanitation, yung mga bagay-bagay na ganyan. Pero sa ngayon, yung monkeypox ay talagang nakabantay tayo dahil nasanay na tayo rito sa COVID, nakabantay tayo ng husto. Pero siguro masasabi natin sa ngayon, madaling masabi na wala tayong kaso dito sa Pilipinas.
On Friday, the DOH announced that a 31-year-old Filipino who returned to the country from an overseas trip last July 19 tested positive for monkeypox. The department said they have identified 10 close contacts of the patient, of which 3 were from the same household. All have been advised to quarantine and are being monitored by the department. It assured that the country is also prepared to combat a potential monkeypox outbreak in the country.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap.
Join Miffy and friends in their adventures this August. Miffy returns a starfish to its home and helps Boris get rid of his hiccups. Miffy and friends then show how fun it is chasing after butterflies while they flutter freely, and how they all try to spoil the surprise for Mummy's birthday party.
Miffy, a sweet little bunny. Miffy, I think it's really funny. Miffy, it always feels sunny. With Miffy!
Saturdays at 10 a.m. dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's get together sa Net 25.
Kailangan mo ako respetuhin.
At may linaw sa kabila ng hindi pagkakaunawaan.
Kung iniisip mong katumbas ng pagmamahal ang pananakit sa babae, mali yan. Ayusin natin ang problema ng pamilya natin, pero hindi sa harap ng ibang tao, okay?
Pwede tayong mabuhay sa lungkot at pagdurusa, o pipiliin nating maging masaya sa panahong meron pa tayo.
Mama! Mama!
Ayoko umiyak. Sasama ang pakiramdam ko kapag umiyak ako. Malulungkot ako. Ano, baby? Tignan mo, binigyan na tayo ng magandang baby para alagaan at mahalin, di ba?
May lungkot na mapapawi sa mga ngiti ng pagmamahal.
Ang sabi ng lola ko, magmahal ka at ang hindi ka matakot sa lungkot.
Gusto kong mabuhay ng tulad mo. Ang mabuhay ng masaya at parang wala ng bukas.
At sa huli, ang nagmamahal ng tunay, siya ang may karamay.
Binibigay ko sa iyo ang puso.
Palabra de Amor.
Panalo tayo pag together. Walang talo pag together. Let's stand together. Sa Net 25.
And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We're still coming to you live from Manila and Bangkok, Thailand, with Gila Pablo. And now, Myanmar's military government has extended a state of emergency by 6 months, according to state media. The junta chief saying the country's electoral system would need reform before fresh polls could be held. Let's listen in.
ကျွန်တော်တို့နိုင်ငံရဲ့လက်ရှိရွေးကောက်တင်မြှောက်မှုစနစ်ဟာနိုင်သူအကိုယူ FPTP First Past the Post ဖြစ်ပါတယ်။ပါတီကြီးတွေရဲ့လှမ်းမှုတွေကြောင့်တိုင်းရင်းသားတွေလူထုတန်းစားအလွှာအချို့ကိုကိုစားပြုတဲ့နိုင်ငံရေးပါတီတွေဟာအင်အားနေတာကိုတွေ့နိုင်ပါတယ်။ဒီတော့သူတို့ဟာရွေးချယ်ခံရမှုနေပါပြီးသူတို့ရဲ့အတန်တွေကိုတရားဝင်နိုင်ငံရေးစင်မြင့်တွတ်တော်တွေမှာကြားရတာနေပါပါတယ်။ဒီအားလုံးနိုင်ငံရေးစင်မြင့်မှာလွှတ်တော်မှာပါဝင်နိုင်ဖို့ကိုစားပြုနိုင်ဖို့ပြောနိုင်ဆိုနိုင်ဖို့ဘာဖြစ်ကျွန်တော်တို့လုပ်ဖို့လိုတယ်။ရွေးကောက်ပွဲစနစ်ကိုပြည်ပြင်ပြောင်းလဲမှဖြစ်ပါမယ်။လက်ရှိသုံးပြုနေတဲ့နိုင်သူကိုယူ FPTP စနစ်ပြင်အချို့ကျကိုစားပြုစနစ် PR Proportional Representation ကိုထည့်သွင်းဆောင်ရွက်ဖို့လိုကြောင်းတွေ့ရပါတယ်။ဒီလိုပြည်စင်ရမှာအစိုးရပြည်ထောင်စုရွေးကောက်ပွဲကော်မရှင်နဲ့တပ်ဆိုင်ရာအဖွဲ့အစည်းတွေကပြင်ဆင်ရမှာဖြစ်တယ်လို့နိုင်ငံရေးပါတီတွေနဲ့လည်းပြင်ဆင်ရမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်။အဲ့လိုပြင်ဆင်နိုင်ဖို့လုံလောက်တဲ့အချိန်ယူသွားရမှာပဲဖြစ်ပါတယ်။
The junta chief also invited the leaders of a number of the country's established ethnic rebel groups for a second round of face-to-face meetings. Myanmar has about 20 ethnic rebel armies, some of which have condemned the coup and offered shelter and weapons training to People's Defense Forces, or PDF, that have sprung up to oppose the putsch.
Malaysia is set to lead a push for tougher action on Myanmar when a regional bloc of foreign ministers meet this week as the anger mounts at the junta for stonewalling crisis resolution efforts. Let's listen in.
The foreign ministers, when we meet in Phnom Penh on the 3rd of August, will look into this. And just about a week before the ASEAN foreign ministers meeting in Phnom Penh. So we look at it that as if the junta is making a mockery of the 5-point consensus, and I think we really have to look at this very, very seriously.
The 10-country Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, which has spearheaded so far fruitless diplomatic efforts to restore peace last week condemned the junta's execution of 4 prisoners. Myanmar has been in chaos since a putsch in February last year, and the death toll from the military's brutal crackdown on dissent has passed 2,100, according to a local monitoring group. Ministers meeting in Phnom Penh from Wednesday are expected to lament the lack of progress on ASEAN's 5-point consensus plan, agreed to in April last year, which called for an immediate end to violence and dialogue between the junta and the coup opponents, as well as voicing deep concern about the recent developments and calling for restraint. The ministers will also demand concrete actions to effectively and fully implement the 5-point consensus, according to a draft communique obtained by AFP. After more than a year of no progress on the plan, Malaysia will present a framework for its implementation, even as critics deride the ASEAN as a toothless talking shop.
Sustained rise in food prices and transport fares, among others, are seen to push the domestic rate of price increases this month to a range of 5.6% to 6.4%. In a statement last Friday night, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas said the depreciation of the peso, which is currently trading at the 55 level against the US dollar, is also among the factors seen to further accelerate the inflation rate. Meanwhile, lower oil prices, reduction in electricity rates in Meralco service areas, and lower pork prices are likely to temper in part said price pressures, according to the BSP. The BSP also added that close monitoring of emerging price developments would be done to enable timely intervention to arrest emergence of further second-round effects, consistent with BSP's mandate of price and financial stability. The inflation rate in the country continues to post a faster rate after breaching the government's 2% to 4% target band in April, when it jumped to 4.9%. In June, it rose to 6.1%, bringing the average in the first half of the year to 4.4%.
Tourism businesses in Indonesia's Komodo National Park began a month-long strike on Monday after the government imposed a huge price hike. Jakarta's 18-fold rise for entry to the park's most popular islands seeks to limit the number of visitors to protect endangered Komodo dragons, the world's largest lizards, from overexposure to human and environmental damage. The move, which came into force Monday, raised admission fees to Komodo and Padar Islands at the World Heritage listed site in East Nusa Tenggara Province from 200,000 rupiah or $13 to 3.75 million rupiah or $252. But it sparked uproar among locals who rely on tourism and industry-related businesses in the national park, still reeling from the COVID-19 pandemic, were closed on Monday in protest. East Nusa Tenggara Governor Victor Laiskodat said the new price would be imposed despite the protests.
Back in the country, Octa research fellow Guido David said the COVID-19 positivity rate in the Visayas and Mindanao is rising, and this indicates the transmission is increasing. Mr. David said the rate in at least 5 provinces in the Visayas is very high, way above the threshold set by the World Health Organization. The positivity rate refers to the percentage of people who are positive for COVID from a specific number of individuals who were tested. The WHO recommends that the proportion of positive test results should be below 5% to ensure that the spread of the coronavirus is under control. Capiz had the highest jump with 51.2% on July 30 from 30.6% on July 23. In the NCR, healthcare utilization went up to 36.5%, but still below 50%. In Capiz, meanwhile, ICU occupancy rose above 70%. In Iloilo and Bohol, healthcare utilization remained above 50%.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Pan Min-chin asked the Ministry of Health and relevant ministries and agencies, people's committees of cities and provinces nationwide to accelerate the ongoing COVID-19 vaccination campaign as new cases rebounded. Acting Minister of the Health, Dao Honglan, was tasked to drastically direct the healthcare system from the central to the local levels to ensure COVID-19 vaccination progress. The Ministry of Health was assigned to cooperate with the Ministry of Information and Communications and relevant agencies to enable people to get COVID-19 vaccine jabs on schedule. Leaders of the People's Committees of cities and provinces were assigned to direct the vaccination and bear the responsibility before the party, state, and the law on the results. The Ho Chi Minh City Pasteur Institute reported that cases of Omicron's new subvariant BA.4 and BA.5 have increased in the southern localities. Meanwhile, subvariant BA.2.12.1 was also being detected in the localities where the outbreak of the Delta variant is causing a rise in the case number. According to the National Institute of Hygiene and Epidemiology, 21 million COVID-19 vaccine doses have yet to be administered, mostly Pfizer and Moderna.
Pilipinas at saan mang panig ng mundo, ihanda na ang shopping list nyo dahil narito na ang online shopping show kung saan ang hanap nyo, meron dito. Narito na ang Shopping All the Way with Jojo A. Eat na hit? We have it! May sayawan, tawanan, pati na iyakan. Pati pets nyo mag-i-enjoy dito. But wait, there's more. Dahil pati celebrity sellers, makikipag-online selling din. At hindi lang yan, dahil may chance kayong makabili ng collectible items mula sa inyong mga paboritong artista. Kaya what are you waiting for? Add to cart na! Shopping All the Way with Jojo A. Opening soon sa Net 25.
And welcome back. We're still coming to you live from Manila and Bangkok, Thailand with Gila Pablo. Gila, go ahead.
Yes, Alma. A fighter burst through a flimsy tarpaulin curtain and bounced into the ring wearing a helmet and the unmistakable bright orange jacket of a Bangkok motorbike taxi rider. It's Thailand's take on WWE wrestling.
The Thai characters, there's something they see in real life, just like Pisucha. There's a bike taxi, and we're gonna have like a transgender, we're gonna have a lot of things that you can see like every day in your daily life. That guys are fighting on the ring. So we try to build start from little by little. I think it takes us about 3 years until we can get the proper training, we can get the proper dojo, the gym, and to get the proper shows that we can sell tickets and fans come to see us. So I feel like wrestling is a real life cartoon, you know. Yeah, you cannot expect to see like a Goku from Dragon Ball in your real life. But if you like the Undertaker, one day you're gonna meet the Undertaker because he's real. Yeah, that's a charming of pro wrestling.
I thought they were food delivery drivers, but hey, what do I know? It's only my 4th time here in Thailand. I thought they were very entertaining. I really enjoyed that match. They worked tremendously hard as well, just like everybody else, and they gave a lot of fantastic effort over the course of their contest.
The 25-year-old wrestler with the stage name P. Suchat was one of the almost 20 individuals slamming and smacking one another at Setup Thailand Pro Wrestling. The part sport, part show has been slowly gaining popularity in the country, and co-founder Kumi Buniatut hopes to carve out a space for local wrestlers using distinctively Thai characters.
And that is today's ASEAN in Focus. Thank you very much, Gila, for keeping me company here on ASEAN in Focus. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Alma, and thank you to all our viewers. And again, that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. I'm Gila Pablo, and reporting from Thailand.
Thank you, Gila. And we'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news, because we live in extraordinary times.